It began with
Oh
a locked
my
door, a
God.
confiscated laptop, and a child crying behind palace walls. When Prince William quietly ordered Camilla's laptop to be taken, no one expected what a royal guard would uncover next: deleted files, hidden folders, and images that left even seasoned palace staff, shaken Princess Charlotte, visibly distressed, frozen in moments that were never meant to be seen again. So what really happened inside that palace room? And why did one loyal guard risk everything to recover the truth? If stories like this pull you in the untold moments, the quiet power plays the human side of royalty, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves royal stories as much as you do. It truly helps the channel grow, and it keeps these deep, emotional stories coming your way. The palace did not announce it. There were no raised voices, no slammed doors, no dramatic confrontation for history books. And yet, by mid-morning, everyone felt it. The air inside Kensington Palace had changed. Conversations lowered, footsteps slowed. Even the long corridors seemed to listen. It started with Prince William. Those who know him well often describe him as measured, steady, thoughtful, careful with emotion. He is not a man who acts on impulse. So when word quietly spread that he had personally ordered a laptop confiscated, people understood immediately this was not routine. The laptop belonged to Camilla. No explanation followed. No memo. No briefing. Just a firm instruction delivered through the tight inner circle of palace security. Retrieve the device. Secure it. No delays. For palace staff, that silence spoke louder than any announcement. Why now? Why so suddenly? And why with such urgency? William had risen earlier than usual that morning. The night before had been restless, one of those nights where sleep comes in fragments, interrupted by thoughts that refused to settle. He had stood by the window long after dawn, watching London wake up, replaying a moment he couldn't shake. Charlotte, not the smiling, confident little princess the public adored, not the composed child who waved from balconies and walked with perfect posture beside her brothers. This was a different image, private, raw, and deeply troubling. She had been crying. Not the fleeting tears of a tired child, but the quiet, overwhelmed sobs that children make when they don't feel safe enough to explain why. William had seen it only briefly, and yet it had lodged itself in his chest like a stone. Children cry for many reasons. William knew that. He was a father before he was a prince. But something about that moment had felt wrong, out of place, as if the tears carried a story no one had been listening to. And then there was the comment.
A casual remark from a staff member, offered without malice, without awareness of its weight. She seemed upset after being photographed earlier, they had said. Photographed. Indoors. Privately. That word echoed. William didn't accuse. He didn't confront. He did what he always did when something felt off. He followed the trail quietly. By breakfast, he had spoken to Kate. She noticed it immediately. Of course. She always did. The way his jaw tightened. The way he listened more than he spoke. The way he held his tea untouched, cooling between his hands. "What is it?" she asked gently. William didn't answer right away. He waited until the children had left the room, until the door closed softly behind them. Only then did he speak. "They're images," he said. Or there were. Kate's expression didn't change at first. Then her eyes sharpened, instinctively, like a mother sensing danger before it's named. "Images of who?" she asked. William met her gaze. "Charlotte." Silence followed, the kind that stretches seconds into something heavier. Kate didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry, but something in her posture shifted, as if she had drawn a line inside herself. "Who has them?" "That's what I intend to find out," William said. By mid-morning, palace security had received their instructions. The guard assigned to the task was not new. He had served the royal household for over 15 years, long enough to understand what wasn't being said, long enough to know that when a future king gives a quiet order, the quietness is intentional. He approached Camilla's private office without ceremony. No announcement, no audience, just a formal knock and a simple explanation. "Security review, ma'am. The device is required." Camilla did not protest. That, in itself, struck the guard as odd. No irritation, no questions, just a pause, brief, controlled, and then a nod. "Of course," she said, "if that's what's needed." The laptop was handed over. The door closed. And just like that, the palace went quieter. The device was sealed and transferred to a restricted room used only for internal security matters. No internet access. No external drives. Everything documented. Everything logged. Officially, it was routine. Unofficially, everyone knew it was anything but. William arrived shortly after. He did not enter the room at first. Instead, he stood outside, hands clasped behind his back, listening to the muted hum of equipment inside. The guard noticed how still he was, how carefully he controlled his breathing. This wasn't anger. This was restraint. "Has anything been accessed yet?" William asked. "Not yet, sir," the guard replied. "Initial scans only." William nodded. "Proceed carefully." There was one rule he made clear. "Nothing leaves this room without my knowledge." "Yes, sir." As the guard began the process, he noticed something immediately. The laptop was clean. Too clean. Minimal files. Recently cleared cache. No obvious folders. No clutter. To an untrained eye, it would have looked empty. But experience teaches you where to look when something is meant to be hidden. Deleted files leave traces. Temporary directories whisper what permanent folders conceal. And sometimes, what's missing tells a louder story than what remains. The guard paused, fingers hovering above the keyboard. "Sir," he said carefully, "there's evidence of recent deletions." William stepped closer. "Can they be recovered?" A brief hesitation. "Possibly." William's voice dropped. "Then do it." Elsewhere in the palace, Kate sat with Charlotte. She brushed her daughter's hair slowly, gently, the way she always had. Charlotte leaned into her, without speaking. Children don't always know how to explain discomfort. Sometimes they just cling. Kate kissed the top of her head. "You're safe," she murmured. Charlotte nodded, but her fingers tightened slightly in Kate's sleeve. Back in the security room, the screen flickered as recovery software began its quiet work. File names appeared, fragments at first, timestamps, image extensions. The guard felt his stomach tighten. These weren't ancient files. They were recent, very recent. And as the progress bar crept forward, one thought settled heavily in the room. Whatever had been erased in a hurry. William exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the screen. The truth was coming back, piece by piece. And once it did, there would be no unseeing it. The room was designed to be forgettable. No windows, no portraits, no reminders of history or hierarchy. Just soft lighting, reinforced walls, and a single desk holding a laptop that suddenly felt heavier than its weight suggested. For the guard seated in front of it, this was no longer a routine assignment. It hadn't been for several minutes now. He had seen things before. Confidential documents, private correspondence, even moments of royal tension, never meant for public eyes. But this felt different, sharper, closer to the bone. The progress bar inched forward. Deleted files rarely return cleanly. They come back fragmented, half-remembered, like pieces of a conversation overheard through a wall. And yet, as the software worked, clarity began to emerge. Image files, dozens of them. The guard's jaw tightened. He had children of his own, grown now, but the instinct never leaves you. You recognize vulnerability the moment it appears. Even before the image is fully rendered, something about the file names made his chest tighten. Dates, times, repeated patterns. Someone hadn't taken just one picture. William stood behind him, silent, not looming, not pressuring, just present. The guard could feel that presence like gravity. "Sir," he said quietly, "I need to proceed carefully. Once these files open, there's no undoing it." William didn't hesitate. "I understand." That was all. No further instruction. No emotional reaction. And somehow that made it heavier. The first image loaded slowly, line by line. A child's face. Princess Charlotte. She was seated. Indoors. The background looked like one of the smaller sitting rooms, not a formal space, but a private one, the kind used when cameras are not expected. Her eyes were red, her lips pressed together in that way children do when they're trying very hard not to cry and failing. The guard looked away instinctively, then forced himself back. This was his duty now, not to flinch, not to turn aside. William inhaled sharply. It was subtle. Anyone else might have missed it, but the guard heard it. The sound of a father seeing something he should never have had to see. "Zoom out," William said, voice steady but low. The guard did as instructed. The framing was wrong. Not accidental. Not casual. Too deliberate. Cropped in a way that focused on expression rather than context. This wasn't someone snapping a memory. This was someone observing. Another image appeared. Charlotte again. Standing this time, her shoulders slightly hunched, her hands clenched at her sides. Tears visible now, unmistakable, caught mid-fall. The guard swallowed. These weren't moments of injury or crisis. They were quieter than that, which somehow made them worse. Emotional exposure, private distress. Who photographs a child like this? And more importantly, why delete them? Time stamps. William asked. Spread over several days, the guard replied. Not all at once. A pattern. That word echoed in the guard's mind. Patterns were what he was trained to see. Not just what existed, but how it repeated. He pulled up the metadata. Each image had been taken within palace walls. No external location tags. No public events. No official photographers logged. This hadn't happened during ceremonies. This had happened during ordinary days. Moments when guards relax. When children forget they're being watched. When families assume privacy still exists somewhere inside old stone walls. William stepped closer to the screen. His reflection faintly overlapped his daughter's image. Past and present colliding in a way that felt deeply wrong. Are you certain these were deleted intentionally? He asked. The guard nodded. Yes, sir. Manual deletion, followed by a system wipe attempt. A pause. Someone didn't want these found. The guard hesitated before speaking again. Protocol demanded neutrality, but there are moments when neutrality becomes a form of avoidance. Sir, he said carefully, whoever did this knew enough to hide their tracks, but not enough to erase them completely. William's eyes narrowed slightly. Meaning they felt confident, the guard replied. Too confident. Confidence like that comes from proximity, from familiarity, from believing no one would question them. The room fell quiet again. The guard continued recovering files. Some images were blurred, others partial, but the story remained consistent. Charlotte upset, Charlotte uncomfortable, Charlotte aware of being watched. None of the images showed physical harm. That almost made it harder to process, because emotional boundaries had clearly been crossed. Do we know who accessed the device during these times? William asked. Yes, the guard said. User logs are still intact. He brought them up. There it was. A single primary user. No guest profiles. No secondary logins. The guard didn't say the name out loud. He didn't need to. William saw it. For the first time since entering the room, his composure faltered, not explosively, but inwardly. A tightening around the eyes. A stillness that suggested immense effort being applied to restraint. Save everything, William said. Secure copies. Full chain of custody. Yes, sir. And no one else sees this, William added. Not yet. The guard nodded. He understood the unspoken instruction. This was not about scandal. Not about exposure. This was about protection. As the files finished restoring, the guard felt a strange weight settle over him. He knew something now that would not leave him unchanged. Knowledge carries responsibility. And sometimes it demands courage. Later, when William left the room, the guard remained behind briefly, ensuring every protocol was followed to the letter. He double-checked access logs. locked the system, signed the final entry. Before powering down the screen, he looked at one last image. Charlotte, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Not posing, not performing. Just a child, caught in a moment that should have belonged only to her. The guard exhaled slowly. He had sworn an oath to protect the royal family. Not the institution, but the people inside it. And now that oath had a face. Outside, palace life continued. Staff moved quietly. Schedules held. Smiles appeared where expected. But something fundamental had shifted. A line had been crossed. And soon, everyone would feel the consequences. The images never left William's mind. Even after the laptop was locked away, even after security protocols were reinforced and access tightened, those moments lingered, uninvited, unwelcome. A father does not forget to sight his child in pain, especially when that pain was captured without consent, without care. William walked the long corridor toward the private family rooms with measured steps. To anyone watching, he appeared calm, focused, in control. But inside, a storm was building, one held back only by discipline and love for his family. Kate was waiting. She knew before he spoke. Mothers often do. The moment he entered, her eyes searched his face, reading what words hadn't yet formed. They were real, he said quietly. Kate closed her eyes for just a second. How bad? She asked. William hesitated. Not because he didn't know, but because saying it out loud would make it irreversible. They weren't violent, he said carefully, but they were wrong, personal. She was upset, and someone chose to record that. Kate's breath caught. Her hand moved instinctively to her chest, as if steadying something fragile inside. Who? She asked. William met her gaze. The files were on Camilla's laptop. The room seemed to contract. Kate didn't react immediately. No gasp, no outburst, just silence. Thick, heavy, loaded with questions she wasn't ready to ask yet. Are you certain? She said finally. Yes. Kate turned toward the window, staring out at the gardens below. Children were playing there, laughing, unaware. That innocence felt suddenly precious and threatened. Why would she have them? Kate asked, more to herself than to William. That's what we're trying to understand, William replied. But intent aside, the act itself crossed a line. Kate nodded slowly. Charlotte didn't imagine it then, she murmured. William stiffened. She said something? Kate turned back. She didn't have the words. Just said she didn't like being looked at sometimes, that it made her feel small. Those words landed hard. Children don't fabricate discomfort like that. They describe it the only way they know how. William exhaled, a controlled release of emotion. We should have noticed sooner. Kate stepped closer, placing her hand over his. We noticed when it mattered. That's what counts. But even as she said it, the weight of guilt lingered between them. Parents always replay the moments they missed, the signs they misunderstood, the trust they assumed was safe. That afternoon, William requested a private briefing. No aides, no advisors, just him, Kate, and the head of palace security. The guard from earlier stood nearby, silent but alert. William spoke first. I want clarity, he said. No speculation, just facts. The security chief nodded. The images were taken over a period of time, always indoors, always without official authorization. There is no indication they were shared externally. Kate's shoulders relaxed slightly at that last point, but only slightly. Deleted intentionally? She asked. Yes, the guard confirmed. Recently. Kate looked at him. If we hadn't checked, they would have been gone, he said honestly. The truth hung in the air. William straightened. What safeguards failed? The security chief didn't deflect. Access trust, sir. Proximity. Familiarity. In other words, the most dangerous breaches don't come from outsiders. They come from those allowed close. Kate folded her arms. Charlotte is not a subject, she said firmly. She's a child. William nodded. And that's where this ends. Later that evening, Kate sat with Charlotte again. The room was softly lit. Toys lay scattered on the floor. A normal child space. comforting in its simplicity. Kate knelt in front of her daughter. "Charlotte," she said gently, "has anyone ever taken pictures of you that made you uncomfortable?" Charlotte hesitated. That hesitation said everything. She nodded slowly. "I didn't like it," she whispered. Kate kept her voice steady. "You didn't do anything wrong." Charlotte looked up. "Am I in trouble?" Kate's heart broke a little. She pulled her daughter into a hug. "Never," she said. "Not ever." Charlotte relaxed into her arms, the tension easing just enough for a small sigh to escape. Outside the room, William stood quietly, listening. This was what mattered. Not reputation, not hierarchy, not tradition. Protection. That night, William made a decision. Not a public one. Not yet, but a decisive one. The next morning, Camilla was informed that her access to private family areas would be restricted indefinitely. No explanation given beyond security review. She did not argue, which only deepened the unease. Palace whispers began. Subtle shifts in seating arrangements. Adjustments in schedules. Quiet removals of privileges. Nothing official. Nothing visible to the public. But inside the palace, everyone felt it. Something had broken. And once broken, it could not simply be smoothed over. Kate and William spoke late into the night, voices low, plans careful. "This isn't about blame," Kate said. "It's about boundaries." William nodded. "And consequences." He looked at the door, leading to the children's rooms. "Our duty starts there." By the end of the week, a full internal review was underway, policies rewritten, oversight tightened, and one guard, quiet, observant, unwilling to look away, found himself at the center of a moment that would redefine palace security. The images had changed everything, not because they existed, but because they revealed a truth no one wanted to face. Even inside a palace, trust must be earned, and once lost, it changes the rules forever. By the time the palace inquiry reached its final stage, the atmosphere had shifted completely. What began as a quiet concern had become a defining moment, one that forced the royal household to confront a truth it preferred to avoid. The issue was no longer about a laptop or even the images themselves. It was about power, access, an invisible line between duty and intrusion. Prince William understood that better than anyone. He sat at the head of a long oak table, hands folded, listening as final reports were delivered. The room was small by palace standards, deliberately so. Fewer witnesses, fewer distractions. This was not a performance. It was accountability. "The findings are clear," the security chief said. There was no malicious distribution, no external sharing. However, the act itself represents a serious breach of personal boundaries and internal protocol. William nodded slowly. Intent does not erase impact. No one disagreed. Kate sat beside him, posture calm but resolute. Her presence was deliberate. This was not just a royal matter. It was a parental one. "What happens now?" she asked. The question carried weight, not because of anger, but because of resolve. The answer came carefully. Restrictions will remain permanent. Certain privileges will not be restored. And internal guidelines regarding minors and private access have been rewritten with immediate effect. In simpler terms, the rules had changed. And they had changed because someone crossed a line they believed would never be questioned. William rose from his seat. "Let this be understood," he said evenly. "This family protects its own. Titles do not excuse behavior. Proximity does not grant entitlement." His words weren't raised. They didn't need to be. They carried authority because they were grounded in principle. That afternoon, the guard who had recovered the images was summoned, not for interrogation, but acknowledgement. William met him privately. "You did your duty," William said. "And more than that, you showed judgment." The guard inclined his head. "I did what was right, sir." William studied him for a moment. "That isn't always the same thing. And yet you chose it anyway." The guard would later be reassigned, not removed, but elevated, trusted with greater responsibility. Quiet loyalty, it turned out, still mattered in the modern monarchy. Elsewhere in the palace, Camilla adjusted to changes without public comment. There were no dramatic statements. No visible protest. But absence speaks, too. Invitations stopped arriving. Meetings shortened. Doors once open remained closed. The palace didn't punish publicly. It corrected privately. For William and Kate, the most important work happened far from those halls. Charlotte began to change. Slowly at first, then more noticeably. She laughed more freely. She lingered less near doors. She stopped glancing around rooms as if checking who was watching. Children recover when they feel safe. One evening, Charlotte sat between her parents on the sofa, curled up with a book she wasn't really reading. William felt her lean against him, comfortable, unguarded. That small weight against his side felt like victory. Kate watched them quietly, a soft smile touching her face. Later, after the children were asleep, Kate spoke softly. "We did the right thing." William nodded. "I know." But he also knew something else. This story would never be told publicly. No headlines, no royal announcements. The public would never know how close a boundary had been breached. And that was intentional. Some truths exist not for spectacle, but for correction. Weeks later, palace life returned to its rhythm, but not its old complacency. Security protocols were sharper, awareness deeper, trust more carefully measured. And one lesson lingered in every quiet hallway. Even behind palace walls, power must answer to responsibility. William stood once more by the window where this all began, watching his children play below. Charlotte laughed as she chased George across the lawn, carefree and bright. That sound, the sound of unburdened joy, meant everything. He placed a hand over the glass, reflective. Leadership wasn't about control. It was about protection. And sometimes the strongest decisions are the ones made in silence, before the world ever knows there was a danger at all. The palace had gone quiet once. Now it felt steady again. Not because nothing had happened, but because the right people refused to look away when it did.